Now I want to look at a standard query that people might want to ask that's actually a little tricky to do in SQL. It's called argmax, and it's queries that try to find the largest thing in a set of things. So in this case, I want to find the sailor with the highest rating. Argmax is commonly used in optimization problems, for example. You want to find the best of a set of alternatives. So here I want the sailor with the highest rating. So let's look at these queries and see if they compute the argmax of the ratings. I want the sailor with the highest rating. First query, select max of s.rating from sailor's s. Is this the argmax? Well, look at the output columns. There's only one output column, and it's a rating. That rating doesn't tell us which sailor has the highest rating. It just tells us what the highest rating is. So this first query here is not the argmax. It's just the max. And it doesn't help me understand the name or the ID of the sailor with the highest rating. So the first query is not a correct implementation of argmax. It's a correct SQL query, but it's max. It's not argmax. Now let's look at the second query. The second query you might think it solves our problem because it has s.star, which includes all the columns of s. So now we're going to get the name and the ID and so on. And it also includes that max of s.rating. This query is also not the argmax because this is not even legal SQL. This query will be rejected by your database system. What is this query trying to say? It's an aggregation query. It's got a max in the select list. When you have a max, that's an aggregate function, which means we're going to compute that max over a set of tuples or a group of tuples. What's the group? In this case, there's no group by clause, so the group is the entire table sailors. So I'm going to compute the max rating amongst all sailors, and I'm going to compute all the columns as well. Well, like for example, the S name column, the sailor name. So over the group of all sailors, what sailor name should I output? Popeye? Olive oil? There isn't a single value that we can output for S name or SID when we group all the sailors together. So this is an illegal query. And remember always that in a query with aggregates in the select list, every column reference in the select list either needs to be nested in the aggregates like s.rating, or it has to be part of the group by clause that identifies the groups, because then each group will have a unique value for that column. Otherwise, the query is illegal. And this query would be rejected by your SQL parser, and it does not therefore compute the argmax. So let's try again. Now we're going to look at these queries, and we're going to see if they're correct or incorrect. And if they are correct, let's try to figure out if they give the same answer. First query is a subquery. It's got a subquery in it, I should say. So we're going to take all the columns out of the sailors table where the rating is greater than or equal to all of a subquery that finds the ratings of sailors. This is indeed the argmax. This is going to give us every sailor tuple whose rating is greater than or equal to all of the ratings that are seen in the sailors table. So that first query is a legal argmax query. Let's look at the second query on the screen here. Select star from sailors S where s.rating equals subquery. Select max s2.rating from sailors. So the subquery finds the max, and the outer query looks for sailors whose rating equals the max. That is also an argmax query. You should be able to convince yourself that these two queries will give you exactly the same answer. Okay? They're just minor rephrasings of the same idea. All right. Now, once again, at the top, we've got the query we had at the top before. Sailors S, where s.rating is greater than or equal to all of the ratings in sailors. Okay? But the query at the bottom is a different way of expressing argmax, perhaps. Here what we're going to do is we're going to take all the sailors, select star from sailors, all the columns of all the sailors, but before we present them in the output, we're going to order by rating in descending order, and we're going to limit the answer to the first row. So we should get the sailor that has the highest rating. Is that correct? It is. So that gives you the argmax. Are these two queries the same? Not quite. So the second query here, the one with the limit 1, is guaranteed to return exactly one row. The first query actually could return a set of sailors, all of whom are tied for the highest rating. So it's possible that 3 sailors all have the highest rating. The first query will return all 3 of them. The second query will return only one of them. And which one will it return? That's arbitrary, okay? Because order by limit doesn't guarantee you the order of columns not mentioned in the order by clause. And in fact, every time you run the second query, you might get a different one of the tied maximum results. Okay, so these things differ in the numbers of rows they might output, that have maximum rating. And the second one is not entirely deterministic in the sense that it will pick arbitrarily amongst the sailors who are of maximal rating. Okay? Sometimes that's what you want. You just want a single row and you want it to be one of the tied winners. And that's fine. You can use the second query. Sometimes you want all the sailors who are tied, and in that case you would want to use the first query. So argmax actually, its definition is a little bit ambiguous what to do about ties. And these two queries give you two different ways of resolving that ambiguity.